What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Word on Woodward on this Cinco de Mayo. And I know this is one of Art's favorite holidays, so we're just going to bring him in right now. Art, I really hope that you haven't started drinking the margaritas yet, but we'll definitely have to have one after the show today.
Well, wait till our final segment with you and Carly there. There'll definitely be some margaritas flowing. And yes, happy Cinco de Mayo. It's one of my all-time favorite holidays. Not my favorite, but one of my favorites.
Out of curiosity, what is your favorite, Art?
I can't say that because we're playing some sort of inner memo thing where, you had to say your favorite holiday. So I don't want to give it away just now. So kind of inside talk there, ladies and gentlemen, right? I think hopefully you had to fill out the memo too, because I got one last night saying, you haven't done this, do it. So I did it. So I'm sorry, my lips are sealed, as the Go-Go's have said many, many years ago.
That's awesome, Art. I did do it, by the way. So yes, my favorite holiday is on there as well. So I guess we won't be giving that away, but we do have a jam-packed show for you. So there will be a lot of excitement today. Jason Beck is going to join us, and we've got exclusive interviews with Madison Bowie, Baseball Hall of Famer Jack Morris, and Red Wings head coach Jeff Blashill. So we're going to get right into things and kick this off with our Big Three segment, Art. And the first topic of our Big Three today, presented by our friends at Chevrolet, is a memo that was sent out by the NHL, which implied that the NHL was kind of pushing for an early June draft, earlier than even normal. The draft for the NHL is normally at the end of June. And Art, I'm going to let you kind of talk about this, but this could be a really good thing for the Red Wings, the way the draft would be reworked if this is in fact the scenario.
I love this idea. I mean, who wouldn't if you're a Red Wing fan? I mean, the Red Wings, as it currently stands now, if nothing changes in the draft, and it certainly looks like something is going to change because of obviously the uncertain times we live in, the Red Wings had an 18.5% chance of getting the number one overall pick, even though they're at the bottom of the standings. They have a better chance, like 50.6% chance of getting the number 4 pick. Well, under this new scenario, Detroit is either going to get the number 1 pick or the number 2 pick. And if that were to happen, Red Wing fans, I'm telling you right now, it's peanut butter and jelly time. Grab your favorite beverage and sandwich. Watch the draft, because the Red Wings are going to get a great player, whether it's one, and that would be Alexis Lafreniere, whom I refer to now. He's that good. One word, Alexis. They could get Alexis, and then they have their pick of the litter between Stützle and Byfield, and don't forget Jamie Drysdale. So this is a great thing from a very selfish perspective if you're a Detroit Red Wing fan, truly. I understand why the league wants to do it, and I think why something is going to happen is because their television partners, Rogers in Canada, and then, of course, NBC here in the United States, they want it. They need something. Ad revenue obviously is down across the board. We all know that. You can only make so many make goods. They need to generate it. It would be front and center. Obviously, we know what the numbers were for the NFL draft. The WNBA draft drew a number, and I have nothing against the WNBA. Corey Halede, the Detroit Shock, still my all-time favorite team. They won a couple of championships here in Detroit, the Shock. So I'm all about the WNBA as well. But what I am saying is that I just think that this makes a lot of sense from a business aspect, and we have to think about that. I know that there's some all kinds of speculation. Well, what about these picks and trades and all that? Well, the league has done something interesting. Like the Red Wings, if Edmonton makes it into the Western Conference Final and Mike Green plays half of those games, and he probably could now because I think he's healthy now. I know he injured himself when he got to the Oilers. And, Mike, we wish you the best. You know that, buddy. But with that said, that pick would suddenly become not a 4th-round pick but a 3rd-round pick. Well, what do you do about that? Well, what the league has decided to do, Detroit and Edmonton, if this is adopted, will have 7 days. 7 days to figure it out amongst themselves, meaning Steve and Ken would probably get in a room, and Ken would say, well, Stevie, what do you think? And Steve would say, I don't care, Ken, whatever you want to do. And so, they would work it out. If they can't work it out, if they can't work it out, I think what then the league would have a mandate. They would give you a solution that you would have to adopt. So, it's up in the air, but where there's smoke, there's fire. I know Steve came out last Wednesday on Fox Sports Detroit and said, he's not really keen about doing this. Well, this memo was circulated to them on Friday night. Now, I don't know how Steve feels. I don't know if he's changed his mind. Maybe he hasn't. But, I think for years, when the Red Wings were the standard bearer for the NHL, a lot of their home dates were not on weekends. And the reason they weren't on weekends is because the Red Wings were the draw in the NHL. They were in the Western Conference for a long time. And, they did the 10:30 starts and the late playoffs and all that kind of stuff. And the reason why I bring up the home dates is because the Red Wings sold out buildings across the league for decades. So for all these people that are crying that this isn't fair to Detroit, trust me, Detroit has done a lot for the National Hockey League. And yeah, am I talking like a homer here? Your bet I am, because I want Alexi. I want you, Alexi. But I'm just saying, hey, you know what? It's about time Detroit catches a break. I love this proposal, as I said, for selfish reasons. But again, and this is my new expression, it's peanut butter and jelly time if this pulls off, the Red Wings get the 1 or 2 pick. Any way you look at it, they're going to get a high-end quality potential superstar player. And, I, for one, and that's exactly what they need in this rebuild. They have a lot of great young hockey players, very, very good, some on the cusp of elite level. This draft could get them an elite player. And hey, I love it.
Definitely an ideal scenario for the Red Wings. Let me ask you this, though, Art. How will this affect free agency and that kind of thing for, different teams? Because they address some of their needs during free agency as well as the draft. So how do you think that would be affected with an early draft?
Well, draft, free agency and trades too. I think in a strange sense, if you have the draft early, because you always have the draft before free agency anyway. Free agency always occurs on July 1st. So I think you would have an idea. Okay, this is the players we have, or these are the new guys we've added into our pipeline. Let's look at free agency. Except for the Red Wings, they're going to get a goalie. They're going to get a veteran goalie. I think we all know that. But aside from that, then I think you slot it out. I think what's interesting about trades, too, the NHL said that at the draft last year, there were a little over 100 trades, I think, made. And based on the system that they proposed last Friday, what will happen is that 64 or 65 of those trades still would have gone through under this proposal. So more than half, maybe a little more than half, but still a little more than half. So I think the league has really thought this out. I know they had a board of governors meeting yesterday, and I'm sure that there was a lot of angst expressed by some of these other teams. But the thing that really upsets me, if you look at the history of this league and you look what the Detroit Red Wings have meant to the National Hockey League, an original six, perhaps the greatest player of all time, the iconic Mr. Hockey, Gordie Howe. I mean, the Red Wings, if they're going to get a break, I don't think there's a team in the NHL that deserves a break more than the Detroit Red Wings for everything they've done to everything that they've meant to the National Hockey League and to television ratings. Look, the Winter Classic was great, but there's no Winter Classic better than the Leafs and Red Wings at Michigan Stadium in the snow. Classic pictures, just a classic game. Unfortunately, the Red Wings, lost in a shootout in that game. But I'm just saying, Detroit's history, these people that are crying me a river and screaming holy murder, get over yourselves. Red Wings deserve a break, and this is a good break. I have to admit that. This would be a wonderful break for them.
It would be. You heard it here, everybody. Stop crying about it. The Red Wings deserve this break. Okay, let's move on to our second topic of discussion for the Big Three today, which is some of the Tigers Classic games that have been airing on Fox Sports Detroit. On Sunday, we were lucky enough to watch the 84 World Series Game 5, where the Red Wings brought home the champion. I said Red Wings again. Tigers brought home the championship. And we also got to see Fitterich pitch last night on Monday Night Baseball. So we had a great couple of nights of Tigers baseball. It was so fun to watch the packed stadiums, the crowd cheering and roaring. And I know that's something we all miss right now. So it was really fun to watch these classic Tigers games.
Well, the thing that these games always do is let you know just how good these teams were. I mean, Willie Hernandez, I mean, I think he did. Did he even blow a save opportunity at that time? Gibby's, of course, Kirk Gibson's iconic home run. But the thing that I really like about that '84 team is that it was a team that we, and this is what's good about a rebuild, even though rebuilds are painful. I think the thing is that we saw this team grow. And when we saw these guys, most of them homegrown Tigers and drafted by the Tigers, we could see the culmination of 1984, what that did for the city, how people were so excited. I can remember as soon as the Tigers won in '84, I was down in downtown Detroit, went to a few watering holes and restaurants, and the euphoria, the goodwill that creates. And that '84 team, because a lot of them were homegrown. I know they made some trades for players, all really good teams, championship teams do, to fill in the gaps. I understand that. But that's what I really, really love about the '84 team, is that these guys were Detroit Tigers from virtually day one. They took their lumps a little bit early on. They grew into a team. And I think that's what we're going to see with the current Tiger club. And we're also going to see that with the Red Wings. I love that. And then, look, I can go on about Mark the Bird Fidrich, as you know, Daniela, forever. And I think what you saw in that game was just how great he was. And what you see is what you get with Mark Fidrich. I mean, this is pure, raw emotion, joy, angst, you call whatever was going on in his mind. The Bird let you know. He was a genuine human being. It was infectious. Bruce Kim was his one catcher. Look at the fans. He's shaking a police officer's hand. I mean, this is just who he was. And I think if you were back there, and I think if you experience, and I hope everybody watched this game, at least a part of it, to experience what the Bird was, what he meant to Detroit, and what he continued to mean to Detroit until his accidental and very untimely death. I mean, Mark Fidrich is an iconic Tiger because his impact is much broader than sports. What he brought, how he filled, I'm really into pounding my chest today. What he brought to your heart, seriously, and what he did, the emotion that he lifted, the way he uplifted an entire community, an entire city. Because, I know I bring this up a lot, but, Detroit, we get knocked a lot, unfairly, I think. But, here is the best story in baseball that year, regardless of where the Tigers were at, was Mark the Bird Fidrich. And I think that Monday night game, you saw why.
Definitely so cool to relive those games, and watching that game last night. I did tune in for a little bit, Art. It was awesome. And tonight even, we're going to get another no-hitter from Tigers pitcher Jack Morris. And we're going to talk to him later in the show. So I won't touch on that one too much because he had a lot of great things to say about that game. And you got the Verlander no-hitter. And I've got to say that Galarraga almost perfect game on Thursday, that is one that will always stick out in my memory for so many reasons.
Yeah, I don't even want to go down that road. I mean, I know Jim Joyce, feels worse than anybody, and but I mean, my gosh, that I guess it's still iconic and historic in the way it was screwed up. But that last call, and it wasn't even close. That's the thing that I don't know. I'm just gonna take a breath, not even go down that road, but. That's a game to watch until the very end, and then just turn it off and say, oh yeah, Galarraga has this. He's got a perfect game, because you won't like the outcome.
You definitely will not, but we're going to switch to a little lighthearted topic for the last one of our big three. And this one is so fun. And Art, I know you and I are both preparing to take part in the Real Heroes Challenge that's going to take place tomorrow, May 6th, with this National Nurses Day. And basically what we did is we put a name on a jersey with some masking tape, Art, that is, so the name that we put over there, and I'll just show you guys the example. Look. I've got my Miguel Cabrera jersey covered with Whiter, and Whiter is for one of my best friends, Michaela Whiter. She's a nurse in the Metro Detroit area. And not only is she a nurse, but her brother's a nurse, her sister's a nurse, and her mother is a nurse. So the entire Whiter family is fighting on the front lines for us during this very, very difficult time. So this is who I'm representing for National Nurses Day. And you can post yours on social media tomorrow with the hashtag Real Heroes. I know you have one, Art. Let me see it.
Yep. First of all, I tip my cap. to the wider family. Way to go. Whoops. That's all right.
Oh.
Of course, I have a Red Wing jersey. Real Red Wing jersey. Has my name on the back, unfortunately. And the double zeros were, I guess what the team thought it'd be back then. But the names that I have, and hopefully you can get it, is Colucci McDowell. That is Dr. Tony Colucci, obviously, from Henry Ford McComb. He's the head physician for the Red Wings. And, of course, my good buddy Lisa McDowell, who is a team nutrition who recovered from COVID-19 and is now back at the hospital out in Ann Arbor. I was going to hyphenate it, Daniela, but then I thought because I can legally marry people in Michigan, I'm an ordained minister, believe it or not. Yeah, I did it online. I thought, if I were to hyphen it, yeah, well, if I were to hyphen it, though, I think I would have married them. So that would have been news to their spouses and children. So I did it this way. But Colucci McDowell, they're on the front lines. Tony, as we know, is runs an emergency department. Oh, okay. I can't really. I still have it on the hanger. Maybe that's the problem. Well, it's a real Red Wing jersey, so I take care of this thing. I don't get it dry cleaned now, but this is it. Maybe there's Colucci, there's McDowell. I can't see myself, which is probably making everyone happy, but that's definitely it. So they're two really wonderful people. They're doing a great job. All of our healthcare workers are. They've really come to the forefront. They've really stepped it up. They've risked their lives. And National Nurses Day, like I said, I definitely here. Let me get the most current one on. I definitely tip my cap to them. Way to go. Yeah. Eat your heart out,
well
Justin.
Said, Art. Very much so. Well said. And again, that's tomorrow, May 6th is National Nurses Day. So you can post your photo on social media and use the hashtag Real Heroes with your jersey on there. We are very excited to see it. So that's our big three for today, everybody. And we want to thank our friends at Chevy for bringing us the big three. When our country is faced with adversity, we find a way to get through it. To help keep you on the road, your Chevrolet certified service experts are here and ready to help. Should you require parts, routine maintenance, or repairs, Chevrolet and its dealers remain committed to your vehicle's needs. Visit ChevyCares.com to learn more. Now we're going to move on to our mailbag segment delivered by our friends at Little Caesars. And today's guest for the mailbag is Jason Beck of MLB.com. Jason, how's it going? We're so excited to have you on the show today.
Thanks for having me on. It's great to be here. Just I had a late night last night watching some former Tigers playing in the Korean League, which had its opening day last night. We saw Warwick Saupold throw a complete game, 2-hit shutout. Dixon Machado hit a go-ahead home run. So, but I'm up and raring to go right now.
And I got to ask you this before we get into our fan questions. You've been doing some really cool top 5 Tigers of all time for each position. You've done catchers, you've done third baseman, second baseman, shortstops. When you were doing this, was this hard for you, or did you kind of have this set in stone, or did you spend some time like internal debates here on which you wanted to put where?
You know what? It took a lot more research than I kind of expected. I delved a lot into wins above replacement and how to judge guys from different eras, which is tough because, for one thing, when you compare guys in, the modern times now to guys from the dead ball era, it's hard to judge the home run totals and what they mean. And plus, nowadays, like strikeouts to walks, it's so much different for hitters now than it was back then. I remember Al Kaline talking about it. It's like when you struck out back in those days when he first came up, I mean, that was really a mark against you. And so you saw a lot more guys who had not only low strikeout totals, but a lot more of the good hitters would have more walks than strikeouts. And that's hard to find nowadays. So trying to translate the different eras, it was tougher than I expected. And I think especially when you start getting into stories like this that involve polls, you end up having to, you want to be able to explain the differences to voters on Twitter before they cast their votes. And there's always going to be some recency bias. You accept that when you go into something like this. But it's been interesting to see some fans, especially on social media, give more of an appreciation. You know, the top guys, yeah, there's always going to be an appreciation for the Hall of Famers. But the guys below that, you know, like Harvey Keene, you saw a lot more appreciation for a guy like him. Dick McCullough, Tony Phillips, even, you know, who isn't that long ago, but guys who really made contributions, who kind of fell under the radar as time went on.
Hey, Jason, great to have you on. It's been a long time. Oh, I'm sorry, Daniel. I just wanted to say I was reading that. Good. What I really wanted to say though is you did center field, and I was reading that Ty Cobb is number 1, but you also said, which I thought was interesting, because let's be honest, I mean, he was a Tiger in like 1900 or something, you know, and played through the 20s. I mean, iconic Tiger. That plaque that says greatest Tiger of them all, you still believe that? I mean, I still do too. I mean, because his numbers have held up. I mean, you can look at all the great players the Tigers have had, and they have had many. But when you look at it, the Georgia Peach is still number 1.
Yeah, I think so. I think when you look at the pure stats, and I know they're counting stats as opposed to, you know, a lot of people go on the percentages and ratios now, but for what Ty Cobb did in the Herculean efforts it took to break some of these records, you know, Pete Rose eventually broke the hits mark, you know, Ricky Henderson broke the run scored mark. What he was able to do in his time, and what you look at what he put up some career seasons in his mid to late 30s, which was incredible. And he was able to play well into, you know, 30s and then towards the 40s. So, you know, what he did, I think he still qualifies as the greatest Tiger of them all. I don't know if they hadn't expected what we would see in the game today when they made the plaque, but I feel like it stood the test of time. Yeah.
You guys can check out Jason's top 5 of all of these positions for yourself at DetroitTigers.com. Now let's get into some of our fan questions that we have for you guys today. And Jason, this first one is for you. Jerry from Redford asked, which Tigers player is most likely to have a breakout season?
Well, this one's going to be interesting because I think part of it's going to depend on what type of shape the season takes, you know, when we get going. When spring training ended, I thought Daniel Norris was looking very good. And I, you know, came away thinking that Norris has a chance to do a lot of good things for the Tigers this year and really make a difference in that rotation. You look at what he did down the stretch. Granted, they were in 3-inning doses because they were trying to you know, limit his innings down the stretch and make sure he didn't bump up against what they saw as his limit by season's end. He put up some really good stats. I think it was a 2.25 ERA, 192 average allowed in his final 8 starts, 16 hits over 24 innings. I think he had 23 strikeouts. The changeup became a viable pitch for him and became even more effective as the velocity picked up again on his fastball. And as we got into spring training, you saw that velo pick up even more. He came into camp in really good shape, maybe the best shape we've seen him. He's really taken a serious approach in terms of his fitness. He looks not only healthy, but strong. He's probably one of the stronger pitchers on the team, you know, just pure power-wise. And he looks like a guy who he's still young at this point because he came up at such a young age and got traded at such a young age. I think this is the year he breaks out. And we kind of see, as long as he's healthy, who the real Daniel Norris is this year.
I like that, Jason. And if true, the Tigers could have some lethal pitchers in their lineup, especially if Daniel has a year like you think he will have. But let's move on to our second question from fans. And Art, this one is for you. Chris from Grosse Point asks, last week they showed the last 4 wins, Stanley Cup wins for the Wings. Who would win in a tournament between the 97, 98, 02, and 08 teams?
Man, but that's not an easy one.
I knew that was going to be your reaction.
I would say, yeah, I will tell you, I think it would come back as great as 2008 was, and what Ozzie was able to do, who relieved Dominic Hasek, by the way, in 2008 in that Nashville series. And, Ozzie was superior. The whole 2008, Nick raising the cup, all of that was fantastic. 98, obviously, what those guys did, to win after the limo accident. They didn't really care about the regular season. They just wanted to get to the playoffs and pretty much cruise their way through. But I think it would come down to, in the tournament, would come down to 97 and 2002. And by the slightest edge, I would give it to 2002. And the reason I would, what are there, 9 or 10 Hall of Famers on that roster? I don't think that you can pass that up. And Dominic Hasek, who was just brilliant in net in that series, I think I would tip my cap to the 2002 team, just because of Robitaille, Hull, Chelly, and then you put in, obviously Nick and Steve and Sergey and the grind line. That was, it's probably, and I don't even think this is a stretch, that 2002 team is considered, and it should be, one of the greatest in NHL history, single season team that was ever put together. And I think because of the hard salary cap and the way the league is now, you're never going to see a collection of athletes on one team like you did in the 2002 team. It was Scotty's swan song. So by the slightest, and I mean slightest, razor thin edge, I would go with 2002 over 1997.
All right. I was really interested to hear your answer to that, Art, but I kind of expected 02 for some reason. So we've got another question for Jason here, and I'm excited to hear your answer for this one, Jason, too. Which milestone do you see Miggy hitting first? 500 home runs or 3,000 hits? And that's from Patricia from Highland.
That's a good question. And I think it's even more timely now that we're waiting for the season to begin and seeing what type of shape the season takes. I've always thought the hit mark was going to be the first to go for Miguel. Because I always felt that as he aged, the bat, he'd be able to slash doubles and hit balls into the gap a little bit easier than he would to be able to put up those big home run totals. Again, just given the aging process and given the ballpark he plays in. Comerica Park is, it's a tough place to hit for power in for a lot of guys. I think Miguel made it look very small for a number of years because he had so much raw power. But as you age, that power starts to wane. But the hitting know-how, the bat quickness really hasn't. I still think, granted, it might take some more time now if we have a shorter season. You might have to wait until 2021. But I still think he's going to get to 3,000 hits first, just because I think he has that know-how to work the gaps and to get doubles. I do think he's going to get to 500 home runs. I think it's just going to take a little bit more time. Now, granted, if he ends up having some more games than we expected here, or if they play more games in different ballparks, we hear all these different plans as far as how a season might play out. Maybe that changes things. But right now, I think Miguel can get to 3,000 hits. And I also think he's got at least another 300 season in him. So I think, that bat quickness, that pure hitting ability is still there.
I tend to agree with you, Jason. And you mentioned Daniel Norris looking good at spring training. Miguel Cabrera also looked pretty good from what we saw of spring training.
Yeah, and that was another reason why I was a little hesitant on this question, because he did see some serious power from him. You have to look at it a little bit with a grain of salt, just because you're playing in hotter weather than usually you get here in the early months. Ball tends to travel a little bit better down there. We've seen him put up some impressive home run totals down there before, and then maybe between the cold weather early in the season. Granted, it might not be as big of an issue this year, but also the wear and tear on the body as the season goes on. It gets a little bit tougher to put up those home run totals for him. But he might surprise us all. I wouldn't doubt that. The key to him And Art knows this. The key to Miguel is going to be health.
Mm-hmm.
No question.
It will be. And you guys, this is our last question for the mailbag, but it's an interesting one. So let's get right to it. Which Wings and Tigers team would you like to see a Last Dance style documentary for? Now, I'll let you choose Wings or Tigers team, but you each get to choose one team. And for those of you who may be living under a rock that don't know what The Last Dance is, that's an ESPN documentary done on Michael Jordan's Bulls teams. And it's really, really well done. But anyway, beside the point, which Tigers or Red Wings team would you like to get behind the scenes and see that kind of access to?
Why don't you take a shot, Jason? I'm really curious to see what you say.
Wow. Well, I would choose between two teams. The 2006 team, which I covered, had a whole lot of fun, and it was amazing and fascinating to watch the emotions as they became this Cinderella team. And then all of a sudden, as they were trying to hold off the Twins down the stretch, then you went through the disappointment of having to go through the wild card route as opposed to winning the division, but then surging and beating the Yankees, and then the ALCS against the Oakland A's, and watch that emotion peak at the World Series. And I think you'll see some of that next week as Fox Sports Detroit shows some of those games from 2006. But as I watched that Fidrich game last night, part of me was interested in thinking, what was that like to be around that team for a full year and to watch just, almost like that rock concert type following that Fidrich had as that season went along. I mean, it was incredible to watch, the fan reactions from that game against the Yankees. Monday Night Baseball was a spotlight for a lot of players back then. It's hard to explain to fans now that, you didn't have nearly as many games on TV back then. So when you had a chance to watch on Monday nights or Saturday afternoons, that was a big deal. And for Fidrich to do that against the Yankees on a Monday night was huge. And that really propelled him really through the summer. And I would have loved to have been around and had, an inside access type of view to see how that fan following built, how he reacted to it, and also how the players around him acted to it. Because it did seem like, as you watched that game last night, the players were happy for him. I think they fed off that enthusiasm. It really kind of, I think everybody fed off each other, it seemed like.
Art, go ahead. This one's for you.
Okay, I think for me, I think it's kind of a no-brainer. I would think that it would be the 97, 98, 96 kind of Red Wings seasons, because you would have to do it that way. 96, they set the record for most victories with 62. They had 131 points, the second most in NHL history. They were eliminated by the Colorado Avalanche in 96 in obviously the Western Conference Final. We had the Lemieux hit on Draper, and then in 97 they were known as the greatest team that never won anything. And, then they trade for Brendan Shanahan, Larry Murphy at the trade deadline. They break the jinx of 42 years. You go from, total disappointment. You go to, the top of the mountaintop. A week later, it's the limo accident. So, they really couldn't celebrate it. Then you go to 97 or 98, they're just geared. They win the cup again, and you give it to Vladdy. As soon as the Red Wings win it in Washington. I think that whole thing is captivating. Plus, Scotty Bowman is captivating himself. You could have a whole episode on him. Obviously the Lemieux hit March 26, bringing in, as I said, Brendan. Don't forget Larry Murphy was a huge addition. And, you could explore the relationship, because people find this fascinating, the relationship between Steve Yzerman and Sergei Fedorov. For the TMZ crowd, you certainly have Sergei Fedorov and Anna Kournikova going on at that time. I think it's something for everybody, but what it really is, it's a great story. It's a great story of overcoming countless adversity. The cheap shot by Lemieux, March 26, which galvanized the Red Wings, which really made them the championship team. That one game made them. That's what propelled them to win 4 Stanley Cups in 11 years. So I think there's a lot of great things there. Of course, I can't forget, you can also throw in the Russian Five, who already have their own documentary, which is really, really good. Iconic Joe Louis Arena, Dominic Hasek, who is, again, an episode probably in himself. There's a lot going on there, although that was 2002. Maybe I would extend it. Maybe I'd make this like Jordan gets like a 10-part documentary. I'm going to give the Red Wings 12. I'm going to go for that whole run. But I really do think 96, 97, 98, I think that would give you, what sports is all about from a competitive standpoint and also from a human standpoint. So that's what I would do.
Well, I think what we learned from both of your answers is that there are plenty of Tigers and Red Wings teams that could do a documentary like this, and it would be a great documentary. Jason, thank you so much for joining us today on the Mailbag delivered by Little Caesars. We're hoping to have you back soon. Like I said, thank you so much for being here. You did great. First time on the show. We're definitely going to have you back.
Great. Thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed doing it.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank
Jason.
you, Jason. We'll talk to you soon. Today's mailbag segment was brought to you by Little Caesars, introducing their hot and ready pepperoni cheeser. You get a large pizza topped with classic pepperoni, fresh mozzarella, and a toasted Parmesan and Asiago crust just for $7. Try our no-contact pizza portal or delivery from Little Caesars. We're going to get to catching up with Carly in just a second, but we've still got a lot of stuff coming up in today's show for all of you. We've got Madison Bowie, we've got Jack Morris, and we've got Jeff Blashill. So definitely stay with us and enjoy this segment of Catching Up with Carly.
Thanks, Daniela. Welcome to Catching Up with Carly, presented by Meijer. When General Motors decided to repurpose their Warren plant to produce face masks for frontline workers, they needed help with disinfecting. So they called on help from the Detroit Red Wings. I am now joined by Red Wings head equipment manager, Paul Boyer. Paulie, how's it going?
All good, Carly. Really good to see you again.
Good
Been
to
too long.
see you as well. I miss you at the arena.
Me too. We'll be back there hopefully pretty soon.
Fingers crossed. All right. Can you tell us why GM called on you?
Well, it was actually Chris Illich that called me. GM had actually reached out to him to see if we had any ozone sanitizing machines, because GM actually purchased one to help with the process of making these masks. So when Chris called, I explained to him that we didn't have one. It's built into HVAC system at Little Caesars Arena. But I did tell him that I could round up a few. He put me in touch with the people at General Motors. And 4 phone calls later, I had 4 machines ready to go, got them shipped in, and it just, helped their process and completed their process for making these masks.
So since you weren't able to extract the equipment from Little Caesars Arena, you called on other equipment managers across the league, right? Can you tell me how that went?
Right. I found one locally here in Grosse Pointe. So I pulled a machine out of Grosse Pointe. The store Precision Blades was very happy to donate it. And then I knew the guys in the league, the equipment managers in the league, who traveled with the portable units. And it was, like I said, I made 4 phone calls. I had 4 lined up. I only needed 2. And then I started the process of basically getting, the closest ones. Chicago was one and Philadelphia was the other one. And these guys could actually get into the rinks. A couple of the equipment managers that I spoke to actually couldn't get into the rinks to get access to these units. So we just got the ball rolling, working with a gentleman by the name of Robert Portuguese, who's running the operation over in Warren. And, a week later, things were packaged, shipped, and arrived at the Warren plant. They were kind enough to invite me in. I got everything set up for them and showed them how to run them. And currently they're using them. I think I don't know the number, but I know they're doing a lot. I think it might up to be 5,000 masks per day that they're sanitizing.
That's incredible. And what does it mean to you that these teams that you called upon are competitors of your team on the ice, but off the ice, you guys are a tight-knit community?
We're very tight-knit. We're a close knit group of friends. And if they would have called me for something, I would have made sure if we could help out, we could do it. But it just we are a very tight knit group. You go to our trainers meetings in the summer, and we're just one big family. We're just one big family. So I wasn't surprised that I didn't have any difficulty whatsoever in procuring 2 of these machines.
And I heard you hand delivered a machine or 2. How important was it for you personally to help out at a time like this? And I know you showed them how to use the equipment. So how important was it for you personally?
It was very important. It really provided a sense of purpose. And I mean, you got to look back. This was probably 3 weeks ago when we were right at the peak of this, and things were, at its worst, for lack of better words. So just contributing that little bit, or even being able to help contribute that little bit, felt pretty good.
And can you tell us what the equipment does?
There's 2 machines that they're using currently. They actually have a total of 4 machines, but there's 2 styles of machines. One looks like a giant refrigerator, giant stainless steel refrigerator. And what basically, in a nutshell, once the door is closed and locked and the cycle starts, it fills the box, or fills the container, with ozone gas. And nothing really lives in ozone. So because of that, it's a great way to sanitize things. So what they do, as the mask is finally produced, they're putting them in trays of probably, maybe 100 in a tray at a time, running the cycle, sanitizing the mask, taking it out, and then packaging, putting in its final packaging. And then the other style machine is a floor unit. It looks like a suitcase, basically. It's on wheels, and it does the exact same thing, but it fills a small room, or any size room, with the ozone gas. So they've got shelves laid out throughout the room. They put the masks in there, run the cycle, sanitize the PPE that they're making, and then, again, take them out, put them in the final package, and get it off to the hospitals and the first line, or the first responders that need them.
And then how does that work in terms of hockey equipment? Like, what are you putting through there? The stinky gloves?
The machines are actually pretty good. Any sports equipment can go in there. Actually, anything that touches the skin can go in there. These machines are used a lot in restoration for fire and smoke damage. It takes the smoke smell out of garments and clothing. So, and curtains and drapery. I've actually heard that the boat cushions can be done. I know someone who had diesel fuel on a boat cushion, and the machine was run through, and it took the smell right out of it. So, like I said, nothing lives in ozone, and not to be too scientific, the third molecule that's added attacks the bacteria, breaks off, attacks the bacteria, and then the machine is exhausted with fresh air once the cycle's done.
That's a science lesson with Paul Boyer, if I ever thought I'd have one. So how soon after General Motors called you did the equipment in their building?
Well, I had the one from Grosse Pointe in there, I think it was a Thursday, so I brought it to them on a Monday. So it was that quick. I got it loaded up and took it right over there. And then I want to say by that same Friday, so probably 3-4 days after, the other 2 units were in, and they were up and running.
And then do you know how many pieces of equipment they have now?
Yes, they have 4. They bought one of their own. One's on loan from Precision and Grosse Pointe, and the other 2, one's from the Blackhawks, one from the Flyers.
And how easy was it to lend a helping hand when you were called on?
Very easy. Like I said, it was just, it was the right thing to do. And that's what the 3 of us felt, myself and Troy from Chicago and Harry from Philly. It was just the right thing to do.
Awesome. Well, Paul, thank you so much for your time. I hope you and your family stay well during this time, and I can't wait to see you back at the arena.
Same here, Carly. Soon, hopefully soon.
Hopefully soon. Thanks again for watching Catching Up with Carly, presented by Meijer. Daniela, back to you.
Thank you, Carly. Great job with that. It was great to hear from Paul Boyer, and great to see what he's doing to help where he can. And so cool to see how other teams are also helping us as well. Now, Carly, we're going to keep you here, and we're going to get into Bet You Didn't Know, presented by Motor City Casino. And I know I, for one, am excited about this Bet You Didn't Know, because guess what? We're not playing trivia or doing anything 2 truths and a lie, so I cannot lose. That's the best news about this whole Bet You Didn't Know.
I was on a roll. I was excited to do some more trivia, or Bet You Didn't, or some multiple choice questions.
That's why we had to cut you off. So today we're doing an art story time, but it's a very fun story.
Well, first of all,
Let's
I just
hear it,
want to
Art. Lay
say,
it on
yes.
us.
Well, Carly, you were batting 1,000, and Daniela was an offer, so I can see why she doesn't want to do it. But yeah, this is a story that goes back to the 2006 World Series. At that time, I was doing a talk radio show with my partner Doug Karsh called The Program, and it was for 1270, the sports station. We had the Red Wings and the Tigers rights back then, so we did a lot of games from the radio booth where Double D and Double Wow. Dan Dickerson and Jim Price, where they call the game. So we were actually in the actual radio booth, and it was 2006, and we were in St. Louis. We're at the new Busch Stadium, and it was in game between games 3 and 4. And so it's an off day in between. So Doug and I are doing the show, and there's microphones all over. There's microphones in the dugouts. There's microphones on the phone. We could hear everything, just everything. It was actually a lot of fun. So Dan Wetzel, who's a columnist for Yahoo Sports, was our guest. Dan's one of the best sports columnists in America. I suggest everybody read him, but he's our guest. And so we're talking and, talking about the series and Tigers. I think at that point, we're down 2-1 in the series. St. Louis, who would end up winning it, was, I think they had the least amount of victories for any, eventual World Series champion. I think they only won like 84 games or something that year out of 162. Anyway, so we're talking about all this stuff. Next thing we see, they set up a microphone in between home plate and the pitcher's mound, and a guy who looks like Billy Ray Cyrus is coming out there, and he's followed by a young lady. So we're looking and we're talking about it, and all of a sudden they start doing a sound check for the Star Spangled Banner. He is going to sing along with this young lady, the Star Spangled Banner, the national anthem for Game 4. Well, it turns out that when they were singing, Billy Ray was okay, but the young lady that was with him, who we had no idea who it was at the time, was awful. I mean, absolutely terrible and awful. So much so that Doug, myself, and Dan were making fun out of her in a good way, saying, hey, we're sorry you have to hear this. We have no idea who it is. Because of our depth perception, they were a little bit far away, even though we're in the booth. We had no idea. We had no idea who she was. Eventually, the St. Louis Cardinals people caught wind of this, and they gave us a sheet and said, it's his daughter. We weren't sure if it was his daughter, his girlfriend, his wife, a contestant winner from St. Louis who got to sing the national anthem, but she was really, really bad. I mean, really bad. And so it turned out that when we saw it, we said, oh, this is his daughter, Billy Ray Cyrus's daughter. Her name is Miley Cyrus, because it's the way she spelled her name, Miley. Well, we take a commercial break. And when we come back, our producer told us at the time, first of all, her name is Miley. People were outraged. Her name is Miley Cyrus, and she's a superstar on the Disney network, Hannah Montana. Well, I had no idea. She was almost 13 or 14 years old. So we were sitting there. The backlash that we got, because we were, I didn't think making fun. I mean, we were telling the truth. She was awful. She was absolutely awful. Maybe she had an off day. She had a cold. I don't know. Billy Ray was fine. Miley Ray, not so much. So, the fourth game of the World Series was actually called off because of rain. And so it was put off a day. So Game 4 comes, and maybe because she had a commitment to Hannah Montana, or maybe the Blues. Now I'm starting to talk hockey. Maybe the Cardinals came to their senses. Billy Ray Cyrus sang the national anthem solo for Game 4. Miley Ray Cyrus was nowhere around. So that's kind of my story. It was kind of a brushness with greatness. I know I just saw her on SNL, the last live show they did, where she took the iconic Pink Floyd song, Wish You Were Here, and sang it. I know she's getting knocked for that. Trust me, it was 1,000% better. 1,000. And I'm not exaggerating, than her attempt at singing the Star Spangled Banner for 2006. You know, that could have ruined her career. It could have been like one of those Ashley Simpson moments where she was caught lip syncing on Saturday Night Live. Remember that? I don't think her career's ever been the same since. But, you know, I think it saved our ears, and it might have saved Miley Cyrus's career. Seriously, I mean, I will never forget that. I mean, we're doing live radio. You know, it was quite painful.
Art, I was a big Hannah Montana fan. Yeah, seriously. I was a big Hannah Montana fan. And I taught you this too, Art. Do you remember what was Miley Cyrus's birth name?
Oh, Crystal Diamond or something, right? No, it was Charity Hope or something.
Destiny
Hey, we're
Hope.
talking about.
I remember reading about that in my J14 magazine.
Yeah, see? Yeah, it was
Charity Hope.
Destiny Hope, but now it actually is Miley Ray.
Well, you know what? I actually, because I always refer to her as Miley Ray Cyrus, but I figured I'm sure her middle name isn't Ray. But Daniela told me yesterday she changed her name to Miley Ray Cyrus. So I saw her when she was just a budding star. Remember, this was in Hannah Montana started in March of 2006 on the Disney Network. And she was born like in 92 or something like that. So she's 13, 14-year-old kid. So I should cut her some slack there. But she was really young. So she was still a relatively unknown, unless you watch the Disney Channel, knew who Hannah Montana was. And, she's Billy Ray's daughter and singing. But again, thank you, the heavens above, for unloading the skies on St. Louis, because you saved us from having her butcher on Game 4.
I don't even know. Like, I don't even have a follow-up question for that story. I don't even know how to comment on that. I never thought she had that great of a voice. She's grown. I never thought she had a good voice back in her Hannah Montana days, but her songs were catchy. Now I think she's definitely grown and she has a more mature voice, so it sounds better. But yeah, I mean, I guess at 14 years old, how do you really execute the Star Spangled Banner? That's like the hardest song to sing.
If I could sing, I would sing for you guys, but Carly has heard me sing before, and none of you want to hear that. But I would sing you a Hannah Montana song if, best of both worlds. Yeah, there you go, Carly.
I would hear the room. The only thing that I would be good at as a singer, and I've thought about this way too much because I have a lot of time on my hands, I would have been a great Pip for Gladys Knight and the Pips. I could have sang the background on like Midnight Train to Georgia or something. Superstar, well, right you are. You didn't get far. I can do all that kind of stuff. Leaving, I can do that. But I cannot do anything else. I cannot carry a tune, I guess, what I'm saying. So for me to criticize Miley Ray Cyrus with the voice I have, trust me, back then in 2006, in October of 2006, Star Spangled Banner, a little bit out of her range. I'm sure she'd do a great job on it now.
I wonder if she's
thank you for that.
You're welcome. I'm sorry. I'll never forget. Dawn, Dan, and I, we were shocked. We were absolutely like, who can this be? My God, this is really terrible. But needless
just
to
be
say,
thankful it's her not.
She's in Hollywood being a judge on probably some reality show and cutting albums, and so more power to her. I wish her the best.
Well, thank you.
I'm sure she'll see this.
Our friend at Motor City Casino for bringing us that you didn't know this week and every week here on The Word on Woodward. And Carly, don't leave us yet, because I know that you have been watching social media accounts across Red Wings and Tigers platforms. What have you got for us for this week?
That is right. I've been scouring social media looking for some content. We've got some good content over the weekend, but I definitely want to highlight a special social media post for today. Tonight, Matt and Ashley Boyd will be doing a Q&A on their nonprofit Kingdom Homes social media page as part of their Giving Tuesday. It's an incredible nonprofit that they have that I spoke with them about last week. They have some awesome giveaways, so make sure you tune in. The Q&A starts at 7 p.m. Again, it's at Kingdom Home on Instagram, an incredible cause that you guys will definitely want to give back to. And today is also Teacher Appreciation Day. And during this time, more than ever, I'm sure parents are very appreciative of their children's teachers as they're at home during this lockdown, trying to homeschool their children. So Jonathan Bernier's wife, Martine, shared this post on her story reading, "We'll trade toilet paper, hand sanitizer, and food for a teacher," combined with a boomerang of her trying to teach her son, Tyler, who you notice is under the table. So sending some extra patience to all the parents at their home trying to homeschool, and a major shout out to all the teachers out there. We definitely appreciate you. So that's it for this mini Let's Socialize segment. I will catch you guys later in the show to give you some more social media coverage.
Thank you, Carly. Always great to hear from you. And as you said, we will see you later for our Let's Socialize segment in the show. And guys, again, Carly is on social media throughout the entire show, Red Wings and Tigers social channels. If you have any questions for us, please, please, please send them our way. Again, thank you, Carly. Now it's time for Downtown Hockey Town, everybody. And for today's segment, we are joined by Red Wings defenseman Madison Bowie. Madison, thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
We're really happy to see you, even though it's virtually. It's been too long, so we're glad that you're here to join us. And the first thing I want to ask you about is some of the stuff that you've been doing in the community for the Red Wings. The first one was the virtual party with Big Sean and some other athletes across the city for the Boys and Girls Club of Southeast Michigan. Now, I actually didn't get to see this one, so I'm really excited to hear what you have to say about it. What was that event like, and what made you want to get involved with it?
Yeah, it was very neat. I think the coolest thing was, I think this time in need, I think it's just awesome right now to get back to the community and try to, make this terrible time, or this, I guess, make everything a little bit easier for kids and everyone going through it at this time. And I think that was nice just to get back and get on there and have a little fun. We did a little Shazam music trivia game, so it was cool to be a part of that. And I think just right now, if you can, any way you can try to brighten someone's day and make lives a little bit easier, and I think just have a positive aspect on someone's lives, it goes a long way right now. And I think that's just what we're all trying to do in the community.
How did your street cred go up in Winnipeg because you're hanging with Big Sean and all that stuff? Did you tell your buddies, hey, look, I know that we're quarantined and all this, but I got friends in real high places?
Yeah, I mean, I know a few of my buddies saw that, or at least I know my brothers did, my older brother, and saw that I was kind of going on live with Big Sean and Ludacris. So I think they thought it was pretty neat, and I think it was just nice to get on there, and it's for a good cause, and it was just nice to hopefully that little hour or so of the day brought some smiles to some kids' faces. So it was awesome.
Now, Madison, another thing that you're involved in is the NHL Player Gaming Challenge, along with your buddy Anthony Mantha. Now, I know that we've been stuck inside for a little while here, so I'm expecting you to have some great video gaming skills, and you're going to take us to the top in this one, right?
Well, yeah, it's actually funny because on our plane, we have a little group of us four that play, and Anthony and I are both part of that group. So yeah, it should be a fun experience for us. I know we're looking forward to it. I think, again, that's a cool way to kind of involve fans and across the world and across North America, and just make sure people are still able to enjoy hockey a little bit, and then just see how we're all doing. And I think it'll be a definitely cool experience for both of us.
The way this works, Madison, will you and Anthony maybe eventually go against each other in the championship game, or are you part of a team? Are you the Red Wings team, I guess is what I'm asking?
Yeah, I think both of us are representing their Wings together as a team. So we'll be a two-man team.
Okay, because the reason I'm asking is I know it's virtual and all that, but you're going to have to be dropping the gloves because Anthony cannot fight at all. Yeah, I don't care if it's virtual or not. So, I mean, are you prepared to meet that physical challenge?
Yeah, I'm prepared, but I think him and I, way we play, we're both pretty skilled on the PlayStation. So I think I don't think hopefully fighting, we won't have to do any of it. We'll just run some goals together.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure you have so many friends around the league. Is there anybody that's representing another team that you're excited to face off against, or maybe face off against?
Yeah, well, I saw that Kuzi was representing Washington, so I think it'd be kind of funny to play against him and play against that team. I know Edmonton too with Darnell Nurse there. I think that'd be cool to play against him. But I think yeah, it'll just be cool to just play against a lot of guys from across the league and just get to communicate with them and then see where they're at in this time and then just yeah, I think it'll be a lot of fun for everyone involved.
Madison, as we've talked about in the past, you were on the Red Wings radar even when you were playing in juniors. Ken Holland told the story when they acquired you for Nick Jensen a couple of trade deadlines ago that they were really thinking of drafting you. Unfortunately, the Capitals did, or maybe fortunately for you since you won a Stanley Cup with them. But I know you wear number 74 for John Carlson, and he has over 70 points even right now with the season on pause. Can you talk about your relationship with him? And I also want to ask you, and this is a double question, and I think you're used to me by now knowing that this question will go on for a year. But I am also kind of curious. I saw a thing on NBC Sports where Catherine Tappan interviewed Ovechkin and Gretzky together, and the biggest Ovechkin fan on the planet is Wayne Gretzky, believe it or not. Can you talk about your relationship, obviously, with Carlson, why you wear 74, and also Ovi? I mean, the kind of player he is. I mean, he just came off. He reminded me a lot of Sergei Fedorov. I'm going to be honest with you, but just what it's like to have such a great player who Gretzky, by the way, hopes breaks his records.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, just for the first part of the question there, John. Yeah, John was, I think, a guy who, when I first even got drafted, when I was 18 years old, going to my first camp, he was a guy there that, he took me under his wing right away. Him and actually Greeny, Mike Green, were both really good to me. Being obviously we're all defensemen, I think they did a good job of taking me under my wing right away. And ever since then, when being in an organization with the Capitals, and once I started playing with them, he was always a guy that would first got to talk to me and help me out in every aspect. I think there's a lot of guys like that in that team, though, with Brooks Orpik and Matt Niskanen, and the list goes on and on. But yeah, Carly was a guy that, definitely still to this day we keep in touch, and he's a guy that definitely obviously you can see how tremendous he is on the ice, and he's that good of a guy off the ice too. So I think that's just one of the reasons why I chose that number. I think I always liked the number 74, and it was just available, so that's why I chose him. He's definitely had a big impact so far in my career. And then going to back with Ovi, he's one of those guys that's I think a true leader. He does everything the right way. I know he's definitely gets that little, he likes to have fun, but I think at the end of the day, I think winning is the biggest passion for him, and he does anything in his will to win. And I think just to be able to play with him and one of the greats to ever play the game, one of probably the best goal scorers to ever play the game was an honor for me. And I know he was also a really good guy to me. We also keep in touch too. So I think it's just great. Because I was very fortunate enough to play with those guys and play on a team like that I did, and meet a lot of great players, but also great guys.
Madison, it had to be a bit different for you to come off a Stanley Cup championship team and come over to the rebuilding Detroit Red Wings. And especially this season, there were a lot of injuries to the blue line. So your role was kind of ever changing, especially this season. How has that impacted your game?
Yeah, it was definitely a big culture shock. I think coming from a team that obviously when I was there, they were the 5 years I was in the organization, or 6 years, they were winning every year, and they were a powerhouse team. And to be able to make that lineup and play there and just learn with the guys that I did there was amazing. I know I'm forever grateful for that opportunity that I got to play with those guys, those amazing players. And then coming to a team like an organization like Detroit was, in my growing up, Detroit was always my favorite team, original six team that everyone loved watching play. So coming here was definitely an honor to throw on that jersey. And obviously the team right now is definitely, like you said, in a rebuild state, but it gives a lot of opportunity for a lot of us young guys. And maybe in an instance in Washington, I wouldn't have had as much opportunity coming here. I do, and I think moving forward, it goes a long way, and I think it gives us all a chance to prove that we can play in this league and be impact players. And I think coming here to Detroit, it gives me a good opportunity to do that. And I know it's definitely, the season wasn't the way we wanted to go, and it definitely didn't end the way anyone wanted it or expected it to go. But I know we have a lot of great skill, great talent, and great pieces that we can put together here to have something great and very special.
Madison, I first have to ask you, your eye is completely healed, right? 100%?
It is. Yeah, it is.
Really? The only blurred vision you get is induced by you, right? It's not from the injury.
No, yeah. I mean, yeah. I usually don't have any blurry vision from that eye. No.
Well, that's good to hear. You were second on the team in defenseman as far as total points. How would you characterize this year? I mean, certainly you log a lot of ice minutes, and you're a better player, like most players are when you log ice minutes on the power play. There's opportunity here. How would you say the year has gone so far? And if it is picked up, if it's paused and the regular season begins again, you still have 11 games. I mean, are those 11 games where you will approach as being a showcase for you?
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, coming to Detroit, obviously, like we spoke about, I think there's a lot of opportunity for me, and my goal was just to come in here and really improve and just really solidify my role as a NHL defenseman. And I think obviously this year, like our team, there's a lot of peaks and valleys with I think individual play and team play. And I think for myself, I think just biggest thing for me moving forward is just trying to stay consistent and focus on playing hard defensively. I know obviously that's my main goal right now, is to make sure I can be a good penalty killer, be good on all 5-on-5 situations defensively, and then go from there. And right now, that's just something that I'm still trying to build on. I think throughout this year, it's definitely improved, and I feel myself, my game has improved a lot and has come a long way. And I think it's just keep on building, keep developing, and if we do continue this season, or if not, I think it just gives us that much more opportunity to keep developing and keep working on our skill and doing the little things that'll make us have success in the long run. And I think that's just what we have to use this time now that we have off and this time of uncertainty, is just to really focus on the little things that will make us better, not only on the ice but off the ice. So I think that's my biggest focus right now moving forward. And then the recap of the year, I think all in all was definitely a few steps forward that I'd like to make and just keep improving.
So talking about those little things that you guys got to do while you have the time to make sure you're staying in shape and in game ready condition. I don't know if you've seen what Tyler Bertuzzi's been doing with the cinder blocks, those workouts that he's got posted on Instagram. Yeah. You doing anything cool like that? Can you top that with some of your at-home workouts?
I'm not getting that creative. I'm fortunate enough that my gym here dropped off a bunch of equipment for me that I set up in my basement. I have been doing some outside workouts in my backyard, but nothing. I haven't had to get creative like Tyler did there, which is kind of cool to see. And it's definitely at this time, I think however you can get the job done and get the work in, put the work in, I think it'll go a long way, and it'll be very beneficial in the long run. So I think that's awesome to see that everyone getting creative and doing their own little thing.
Have you stayed in contact with the fellas? Do you meet, and try to discuss what's going on? I mean, you're in Canada, where I would assume it's similar to the situation we're here in the United States. Pretty much everything is on lockdown. So how do you bide your time? And do the Red Wings have every night at 8:00, it's Red Wing time, where all you guys are, screwing around on the computer or something?
No, we have a few group chats going around and a few Snapchats, obviously. So we're seeing each other's faces. We play a few, like you said before, a few video games, PlayStation 4 together. So that's nice. For myself, though, I'm keeping busy. I just got a puppy actually 2 weeks ago. So I've been busy with him. He's a lot of fun, a lot of energy. So it's been I think just right now it's just finding little things in your life that you really always wanted to do, never got the chance to do. I think that was one big thing for me, was getting a dog. I always wanted to do. So I got that, and I'm definitely reading more now and focusing just on hanging out with. My brother lives with me, and I think it's just nice to hang out with family right now and just stay safe and really just stay positive and through these times.
Madison Bowie, everybody, thank you so much for joining us again, Madison, and stay safe, stay healthy, and stay in shape during this time. And we hope to see you guys back out on the ice really soon.
Wait, excuse me. I just have to ask Madison. I want to ask Madison one more thing. Actually, two more. Okay. Number one, is your puppy's name Travis?
No, his name's Harley. No, no Travis for you. Sorry. Maybe the next one.
All right, thank you. And secondly, I mean, not that you don't look good in this white thing that you're wearing, hoodie or whatever. By the way, is that silk?
Oh my goodness.
No, it's like wool. It's a nice wool.
Well, you are. I guess that makes sense. It'd be wool. But where's your Blue Bomber stuff? I mean, we're talking Grey Cup here. I can't believe you're not decked out in the hometown.
Yeah, I don't have any actually Blue Bomber attire, but I'll have to get some now that they're champions.
All right. Well,
All right,
I mean, hey, the
anything
colors
else?
look good on you. They have great colors.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Yeah, they do. They do. They're nice.
Well, thank you, Madison. Art, you're good now, right? No more questions?
Yeah, I could talk. I could talk to Madison a long time, but I'm done.
Yeah, okay.
All right,
Hopefully, I'll see
Madison.
you guys soon.
Thanks,
Thank you
Madison.
so much for joining.
Really appreciate it. Thank you. Stay safe, buddy.
Have a good one, guys. You too.
Downtown Hockeytown is brought to you by Labatt Blue Light, refreshing Canadian Pilsner. Visit your local retailer when safe to pick up some Labatt Blue Light. Thank you again for joining us, Madison and Art. I've got two things that I want to ask you about here. First of all, silk and wool are totally different. And
Didn't it
second,
kind of look silky though? Didn't it look kind of silky?
it kind of did. But second, you asked about his puppy and if he gave him Travis. And I feel like people might be wondering why, because you and Madison Bowie have a little inside joke about Travis. Why don't you tell people really quick?
For some reason, when he was first acquired, and as you can tell, he's a really, really great guy. Number one, I mean, he truly, truly is. Very easy to talk to, very affable young man. For some reason, I had it stuck in my head that his name was Travis, and I used to call him Travis. And then I went up to him one time, and and people would say, like, whether it was Dana Wakiji, my colleague, or Andrew Bossman Christoph or Stacy Boss Lady Burlingame, they'd always say his name is Madison. It's not Travis. And for some reason I couldn't get it through my head. So I asked him one day, I go, hey, is there a Travis in your family? Is your middle name Travis? No Travises at all. But he let me call him Travis. And then over time, it kind of finally, in my dense brain, it kind of stuck. So I pretty much call him Madison, but on occasion, I still do call him Travis. And he just looks like a Travis to me, I guess. I don't know really what to say. It's crazy, but he's a good sport about it.
I was just going to say, I think that speaks to how good of a sport Madison Bowie is when it comes to this stuff. Guys, we've still got a lot coming up on today's show. So we've got Brush Street Beat coming up next, but after that, we're going to talk to Jeff Blashill, and Carly's going to join us again for our Let's Socialize segment. Now we're going to move on to the Brush Street Beat, everybody, presented by our friends at McLaren. And joining us today, we've got former Tiger and current member of the Fox Sports Detroit Tigers broadcast team, Jack Morris. Now, to kick this off, I want to talk a little bit about the '84 World Series. Fans were lucky enough to see the replay on Fox Sports Detroit last night and watch the Tigers and yourself bring home that championship. And you yourself pitched two games that were complete games, victories in both of those. I want to know, during that series specifically, what was running through your mind?
Just a lot of confidence, I think. Our team was a team kind of a destiny. We had a tremendous start to the year. We thought we'd have a tremendous lead, but Toronto stayed right with us and made it interesting all the way till the last couple of weeks. But we were a confident group of guys ready to show the world that we were the best there was. And, we knew we had to go prove it, but every single day we somehow had a player that would step forward and be the hero when we needed him to be the hero. And so for me, going into game one, obviously after winning that game 4, a lot of confidence. We knew we could get the job done.
Jack, tonight, Tiger fans on Fox Sports Detroit will be treated to your no-hitter. You were the first Tigers pitcher that I remember to ever pitch a no-hitter. And I was at a believe it or not, like a double pinochle tournament. So needless to say, it was kind of a festive atmosphere as we were watching the game. And when you did that, I couldn't believe it. I am not exaggerating. There was not a dry eye in the house because a Tiger pitcher had finally pitched a no-hitter. I would imagine that has to be one of the greatest feelings if you're a pitcher of all time, going, no-hitting a club.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that go into it, and luck is a big part of it, right? I have to credit my teammates for some tremendous defense during that game. I got into a couple jams. Lance Parrish did a tremendous job behind the plate. And, we got the runs we needed for the support. It was a cold, windy day in Chicago, even though it was sunny and bright outside. And as the game progressed, I just got more and more adrenaline going. I knew that it was a situation I had never been in. I don't remember after the 5th inning being in a no-hitter in my life. So when I saw the scoreboard with a lot of goose eggs in the 6th inning, I knew something special was going to happen, and I was bound and determined to do my best to try to make sure that did happen.
Jack, as you mentioned, that was the start to a special season for the Detroit Tigers. But let's rewind a little bit. We're talking about Jack Morris, the World Series champion, pitching no-hitters. But in high school, when you played baseball, you were actually a third baseman and a shortstop, and your younger brother pitched for your school. You got to tell us about why that was and how you actually became a pitcher.
Well, I probably became a pitcher by default because I had the strongest arm on the team. I could throw the ball really, really hard. I preferred shortstop and third base. I started at third base and then I moved over to shortstop because there was more range there. I could get involved with double plays, and I really liked playing that position. But, eventually my coach looked at me and said, you got to learn how to pitch. You can throw the ball by guys. And so I grabbed the ball and went on the mound and scared the living daylights out of most hitters because it might come at your head, it might come at your shoes, it might go on the other side into the dugout. But I threw it hard just in case. And just over lots and lots of millions of pitches, I finally got tuned in and started throwing the ball where I wanted to.
Looking at your career, I love this quote from Sparky Anderson, and I had to write it down. It says, he was the last of a breed, somebody who actually comes to the park with anger to beat you. And I knew you were intense, and I always loved watching you pitch because, not that I ever wished that you got into trouble, but it even looked like Sparky was hesitant to come out to the mound to take you out. What was that like? Because there's one thing I remember about you. You never, ever wanted to leave a ball game.
Well, there's more to the story than that. Sparky, in 1979, came over to the Tigers, and, within a couple weeks, he pretty much called me into his office, had a heart-to-heart with me, and he said, you know what, I need you to learn how to finish games. I think this was in 1980 after his second year, but he said, you're the guy that needs to go deeper in games. You're trying to rush things. You're a little nervous late in the game, and I can't tell you how to pitch. I don't know how to pitch, but I need you to stay in there and finish games. So don't look for me to come and get you. I'm going to let you figure it out on your own. And there was a couple games where it was quite embarrassing. I gave up 13 earned runs one game and finished the game. And I gave up 12 earned runs in the same year in another game. And so it took most of the year to try to get my ERA under 4 because of those two games. But it taught me a lesson on how to just take deep breaths and focus late and harness the energy I needed to throw strikes. And once I learned that, I wasn't going to let Sparky take me out because he's the one that taught it to me.
Jack, when you're going through that learning process on how to become the great pitcher that you were, was there anybody that you watched throughout the whole Major League Baseball, the whole league? Was there anybody that you watched that you wanted to model your game after?
Well, it's funny because the guys that I admired were the guys that completed games, that won a lot of games. And quite honestly, they're all in the Hall of Fame. They were all in the Hall of Fame before me. But it was the Seavers and the Carltons and the Ryans and the Necros and, Jim Palmer and those kind of guys, Gaylord Perry. They were all guys that knew how to win and they knew how to complete games. And quite honestly, again, I go back to what Sparky wanted me to become. He said, I need you to be that guy. We have to have at least one pitcher to finish games so that our bullpen isn't overused. And, once I kind of learned how to win and realized what a great team I was on, I had a lot of confidence going out there that every day I could give it my best effort and have a good chance of doing that.
Jack, you had a command of 3 pitches, obviously a fastball, slider, forkball. Legendary Tigers pitching coach Roger Craig came up with the split-fingered fastball, which was the talk of baseball at the time. How did that pitch and learning that pitch impact your career?
Quite honestly, I had a slider, a changeup, fastball, right? And my fastball and slider were about the same speeds. I was kind of really getting flat with my slider. I wasn't getting the break. And I wasn't getting a put-out pitch, a put-away pitch, a swing and a miss pitch anymore. So I needed something that a hitter would see and swing and miss. And Milt Wilcox was the one that actually showed me the forkball. And when I had success with it, Roger tried to teach everybody how to throw it because he saw what it could do to a hitter if it was thrown right. So, when I learned the forkball, all of a sudden my slider actually got better because I wasn't throwing it as much, but I had depth vertically, like a curveball with change-up action and a fastball arm speed. It all sounds complicated, but it was a pitch that definitely turned my career around.
Jack, you're obviously still really close with the Tigers organization. You're working for Fox Sports Detroit. You're watching all their games. You've got to love the young arms that they have in their prospect pool right now, specifically Casey Mize and Matt Manning, And being the great pitcher that you were, what is your take on these two young pitchers?
I wish I could be them. Quite honestly, it's an exciting time. And unfortunately, this crazy pandemic has got everything messed up, but both those guys are on track to really get their major league careers started, and who knows what they can do because they have so much talent. Tarek Skubal is another one of them. They got some guys down there that can really pitch. And, the other thing that I was optimistic about in this time off really could be helping is Michael Fulmer trying to make a comeback. The word on the street is he's ready to face hitters. The problem is there aren't any hitters to face because he can't get anybody in the cage with him. But a lot of exciting things down the road for the Tiger pitching staff.
Jack, I know that they say patience is a virtue, but impatience is human nature. I know all those young arms, and Tiger fans are eager to see each and every one of the players that you just mentioned. Everybody's rooting for Fulmer to make a great comeback from Tommy John surgery. What kind of advice can you offer? Do you tell them to calm themselves down, or do you want them to have that edge and get to the majors as soon as possible?
Well, honestly, all the guys we just talked about have already had success in the minor leagues. And in my way of thinking, if you have success in the minor leagues, there's no reason you can't have success in the major leagues. You just have to figure things out on your own. Now, there are going to be coaches and a lot of different ways to analyze, and, pitch counts will become a part of it. But ultimately, those guys have learned how to succeed up to this point in their careers. And I believe they're going to take the next step eventually, given the time that they need to kind of mature and get a feel for it once they're here.
Well, I can tell you one thing. We are really excited for the Tigers to start playing some baseball again. I know you're probably itching to get back in the booth, right?
I am. We're all anxious to get back to whatever the new normal is. But more importantly, I want to make sure everything is safe, in a selfish way. I don't want to get the thing. I know I look like I'm 22, but I'm a little older than that now. And, I want all the players to feel comfortable so that they can play to the best ability and bring out the very best in them. We all want baseball. We all want sports. We want life back to normal, but we have to do it in a safe way.
Well, thank you, Jack. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was great to chat with you, and stay safe and stay healthy during all of this crazy time.
You guys as well. Thanks for having me.
And a big thank you to McLaren Health System for sponsoring the Brush Street Beat this week and every week on The Word on Woodward. Another thank you to Jack Morris for joining us, and great to hear from him. And you guys, again, you can catch his no-hitter re-aired tonight on Fox Sports Detroit. Art, we got a really great fan question, and this one is from Mad Far on the Tigers Instagram account. Who is the greatest TV or movie character to wear a Tigers hat?
Well, I really think you have to go with Detroit native, born and raised, Tom Selleck as Magnum PI. Even though the Tigers have worn the Old English D, and that has been part of their outfit, the Tigers uniform since 1901, I think Tom Selleck brought, because Magnum PI is such an iconic television character, brought that hat to the forefront. And, he even, Tram and Lou even did a cameo on Magnum PI where he was in Detroit for something, and, is at I think it was a local watering hole, and, he was talking to them. And so I think that the whole premise was they didn't know Tom Selleck didn't know who they were. And then when they leave, they have a picture of Tram and Lou in their Tiger uniforms or something like that. But I really think that, Tom Selleck officially batted in a preseason game as a Detroit Tiger. He is on the lineup card. If you look at the official score sheet, Tom Selleck actually batted. I think he struck out. So I think for what he did for the brand, and it is so iconic. He made, the Old English D. I know iconic's my word here, but he made it so prevalent in part of today's culture and society across America that the reboot of Magnum PI, the new Magnum PI, wears a Tiger's hat, wears the Old English D. I mean, I would imagine at this point, because it was so far away between the original Magnum and the reboot, that he probably could have chosen any team he wanted. As long as he was wearing a baseball cap, because that's what Magnum did. But he wore the Tiger's hat. Now, I don't know if Tom Selleck, before he signed off on this or before he gave his blessing, said, if this Magnum's not wearing a Tiger's hat, there's no reboot happening. Maybe. Who knows? But I would have to say Tom Selleck for sure. I'll tell you how big the Tiger's cap is, though, Daniela. Many times where you see someone wearing the Old English D now, it might not be, it's because of the hat itself. It's larger than maybe even the Tigers in baseball. I mean, that Old English D is almost now a symbol for the city of Detroit. And more so, and obviously it is definitely the Tigers, but that's who I would say. Tommy Selleck, Detroit native, way to go, fella, way to go.
It's really cool that actually the Tigers and the Red Wings both have really iconic logos, because the wing wheel is known pretty much everywhere too. So both of our teams here have very iconic logos. We've seen the Red Wings on Full House, of course, with Dave Coulier, and Kanye West was actually just wearing a Red Wings jersey not too long ago.
Well, Tupac probably has one of the more famous photographs of wearing a Red Wings jersey. I think he was a little angry. I think he might have been coming out of court or something. But obviously, the Red Wing jersey, that just the iconic winged wheel and the color red. Don't forget that the Red Wings red is I love what the legendary sports columnist Joe Falls used to call it, blood red, the blood red jersey. And then you combine it, Bubbles the Lion isn't too bad for the Lions. But I like the Lions logo that has the Honolulu blue and silver bar with the lion in front. Yeah. And then let's be honest, the Pistons logo, talk about innovation. A basketball that says Detroit Pistons for a basketball team. It's brilliant in its simplicity. So I think all four teams have pretty nice logos, but really it's tough to beat the Old English D and the winged wheel.
It is, Art. You're right there. And guys, we've still got a lot of exciting stuff for you on the last half hour of the Word on Woodward. We're going to have, just coming up in a little bit, Carly's going to join us again for the Let's Socialize segment. So first, we've got our headliner interview. So I'm going to toss it over to Art for this one.
Thanks, Daniela. Time now for the headliner, brought to you by Miller Lite. And let's bring in the head coach of the Detroit Red Wings, Jeff Blashill. Jeff, thanks for joining us. Really glad you could make some time and join us today on the headliner. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Art. Did you paint that room yourself?
As a matter of fact, I sort of did. As you can tell, it's kind of a two-color thing. You know me, Jeff. I think if there's one thing, I have a real flair for fashion and for color. So I thank you for complimenting me.
I've always thought that about you, Art.
Jeff, you're soon to be a Hall of Famer. Congratulations on being elected to the Ferris State Hall of Fame. And I know through your life, whether it's your father, a former Detroit police officer, moved the family up to the UP to become a professor, and a couple of youth coaches that you had in the UP that were instrumental in your life. But I like Bob Daniels. He's the head coach at Ferris State, longtime head coach. He was your coach. Can you talk about your relationship with Bob Daniels and what he's meant to you?
Well, Bob had a huge impact on my life, and I was inducted into the Ferris Hall of Fame for my post playing career. Certainly not my playing career during my time at Ferris. I was a below average goalie there, and I don't know that I get going in coaching or that I certainly get the foundation in coaching if I hadn't have played for Bob Daniels. And it's really given me some time this NHL pause in our season to think about it. And my junior and senior year at Ferris, I played a lot my first 2 years, and I lost my job my junior year. And so I sat on the bench a little bit my junior and most of my senior year. And Bob always made me feel important. And I think it was a good kind of self-reflection for me as a coach. It's easy to forget the guys that aren't necessarily out there helping you win every single shift and every single night. But they do have importance to the team. And Bob always made me feel important. He would come ask me questions on the bench, and he probably got me invigorated into the thought of coaching. And he actually came to me my senior year during one of the practices and asked if I'd ever thought about getting into coaching. And at that point, I had it. Prior to that, I had always thought of maybe going to law school, maybe doing something in the world of finance, maybe going to trying to get into the FBI. And he's really the one that probably helped ignite my coaching career. And then the first 4 years of my coaching career were spent under Bob Daniels, and it certainly learned a great foundation of how to teach, how to treat people, the smarts of hockey. He was excellent at it. And Drew Famulak, I was with for all 4 of those years too. He's still an assistant there. Drew had a big impact. And so, I remember one of my first coaching jobs, I was the 4th assistant. Jamie Russell was an assistant coach there as well. And I was the eye in the sky, and I'd come down between periods. And I remember coming down at Northern Michigan and them asking me, what I saw. And boy, I couldn't say anything. I didn't know what I saw. Everything seemed to happen so fast. And they were talking about this adjustment and that adjustment. And I was really green. And then the next year I got the job full time, and Bob allowed me a lot of responsibility, allowed me a lot of recruiting responsibility. So I owe a ton in my life to Bob. He's a great friend of mine, a great person, as somebody that I spend a lot of time with to this day.
Last week we had Justin Abdicator on the headliner, and he was talking about eventually, if the sport does get back, the season is put off pause, that he thinks it's going to take a legitimate month to get into shape to come back and play those games. The Red Wings only have 11 games left. I mean, are you of the same ilk? Do you think it's going to take a training camp of 3 or 4 weeks, just because you don't want to risk injury to these guys?
Well, certainly it's the longest they being the players usually go without skating. Most players now skate all summer long. To be honest with you, now the days of waiting till August and getting in shape are long gone. Guys are working on their skill development throughout the course of the summer. So most times players don't go this long without skating. So there certainly needs to be a ramp up period of time. Now, what does that look like is what I'll be interested to see. Is there a period of time where they're able to get back in buildings and start weight training and getting on the ice and doing some skating on their own, and then that leads to some type of camp, and then that leads to going and playing real games? What does that look like? Is it all team centered, where you start right away and it's 4 weeks with just the team? Boy, that's a long time to just do that. So it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out. Obviously, we don't know any of that yet. What we'll do as a staff is try to maximize our opportunity. And the games for this year for us, we've already figured out where we're going to end up in the standings, but they certainly can mean something moving forwards towards next year, whether it's individual skill development, or if it's making sure that we're building into a team identity to prepare for next year. And that's the way we'd treat it if we were told to come back and we're going to have a camp and we're going to play. That's going to be an important part for next season for us.
Do you try to keep in contact with the players, or are you allowed to? Have you tried to make sure that they're doing everything correctly, or maybe the training staff, talking to Steve a little bit, just so everybody is still pretty much engaged, even though everybody is at home?
Yeah, we have. I've talked to almost every one of our players, and kind of went through a number of different items and talked to them about what their plan is for this summer and those types of things. And I know, our strength coach is doing the same thing, and our training staff is doing the same thing, and I believe Steve Yzerman is doing the same thing. So we're trying to get contact with the players, make sure we stay in touch. I ask them what they hear from the NHLPA. I tell them any information that I might have, and again, my biggest message is, we're training to be a better hockey team a year from now. And if it ends up where we don't come back this summer, then we got to train to be a better hockey team next year. If it ends up where we do come back this summer, then we're training to be a better hockey team next year, both individually and collectively. And that's what we're going to look at this as. So, the players seem to be all in different kind of spots. Some guys have more access to weights, and some guys have to be really creative. I think in the end, this is where inner drive plays a big factor in success. Like if you have that great inner drive, you're going to find a way to be useful during this time. And if you don't, you'll probably find excuses to not be useful. So we got to make sure and rely upon the inner drive of our players and the character of our group.
Now, there's always been, you've always been good with young players. Every place that you've won, you won a Calder Cup in Grand Rapids. You've always won championships. You took a Western Michigan program that was a CCHA, and I don't want to be harsh, but let's say a bottom echelon team, and elevated them to a playoff team in 1 year. What is the secret to motivating young players?
Art, to be honest with you, I don't think it's different between young players and guys with experience. Either way, our job is to show them when they're on the path to greatness and when they're not, and you set up standards that they're to meet, and when they don't meet it, you have consequences, and generally immediate consequences are the best way to change habits, just like in parenting. So I don't think it matters whether you're a younger player or an older player. Our number one job as coaches is people managers, and that's what we do is we manage people. And so communication becomes a huge factor in that. Again, making sure that they know when they're doing it right and when they're not doing it right. And we got to tell them both ways. And then they got to self-reflect and make the necessary adjustments. And when you do that as a group, you end up maximizing each guy, and they end up becoming the very best player they can become, which also leads you to become the very best team you can become.
I would imagine you have to be encouraged. I mean, obviously the record is where nobody wants it is, but the influx of talent that the Red Wings have, of young talent, and the way some of the guys, like whether it's Mo Sider or Joe Veleno finally, catching it in Grand Rapids, Michael Rasmussen learning center, that the future does look bright, because these young players that have entered the system within the last 3 or 4 years are starting to mature and look like they're on the cusp of being in the NHL.
Well, I think it started a number of years ago where, we stopped trading away picks to try to make runs in the playoffs. And we started, for lack of a better word, Ken started hoarding or collecting as many draft picks as he can. And then we traded away real NHL players for future draft picks. And when you do that, sometimes it results in a season like we've had where it was painful at times to go through, but it also is part of the bigger plan to try to reignite the franchise with a number of young players. And what it comes down to in the end is how good those young players are. Are they good? Are they great? Are they elite? How quickly can they help impact your organization? And there's a process, there's a developmental process that goes with that. And you can't force the timeline. It's kind of like the timeline we're living in now. The virus dictates the timeline. We don't. And it's the same thing in player development. You can't force the timeline. So, I hope they all become elite, and I hope they do it tomorrow. But that's probably not the reality. What I think, as I look at the pool of players that we have, of young players, I think it's as good as we've had since I've been in the organization in terms of prospects, certainly on defense. I think there's a number of guys that have a chance to be good NHL players, and then can one or two of them become great NHL players. That puts you way ahead as an organization. So it's a patient process. I know Steve's talked about the need for patience, and that's the reality. And it's hard. It's really hard. It's hard as a hockey team. It's hard as a head coach, and it's hard for the fan base. But there are no shortcuts to success in life, and there are no shortcuts to success in this league.
Jeff, people always ask me, your relationship with Steve Yzerman is pretty special. He's come out several times and said that you're both on the same page. You understand where you're at. Can you elaborate a little bit on, because you didn't know Steve real well until he got here, but this seems to be a nice little relationship is developing where, as I said, you're both on the same page. You both have an understanding.
I didn't know Steve well, no, certainly not in this context until he arrived here as the GM. I knew him. We were friendly, but I didn't really know him. And until you work for somebody, I don't think you're really doing. You learn as you move through different trials and tribulations together. And the one thing with Steve is he's very honest, and I know where I stand at all times. I try to be very honest with him. I try to keep him in the loop of any of the decisions that I'm making to make sure the communication is really clear. Again, part of our job as NHL head coaches to make sure that you communicate up as well as communicate down. And so, I think our communication's been good. Again, I got a lot of respect for Steve. He can give lots of insight. He's been through a lot of things as an NHL player and as an NHL GM, and I would be crazy not to try to glean that information from him. And that's the way I look at it. I want to gather as much information from as many people's experiences, and certainly his experiences are unique. He's been in this spot that we're in right now, and I love to hear some of his thoughts on that, and that helps me be better informed and allows me to make the best decision possible. So I've really enjoyed working for Steve. He's, as I said, real honest, and I think we know where each other stand.
Jeff, I know we're running out of time, but I got to tell you real quick. People always ask me, wow, Jeff Blashill, I know you see him all the time. Seems like a real nice guy. And I said, well, my Jeff Blashill story is when you were at Western Michigan, I was doing a lot of CCHA games for Comcast, and you let me be like, I was the rinkside reporter, be on your bench for the first and third period of every Western game that we did. And, you were always nice and gracious with your time, as I said. And people said, what can you tell us about Jeff Blashill? I said, when he's behind that bench, he is one, he's like Shaft. He's one bad, you are intense back there. You have a job to do, and your focus, it wasn't that I guess I was surprised, but you're completely different behind the bench than you are, I guess, outside of the rink.
Well, I think, some of that's perspective, Art, and just, again, when we're doing our job, we're trying to do it to the best of our ability. And when you're leading a group, you don't really have time to worry about feelings per se, and you make decisions and you lead. But that doesn't also mean that we have a lot of communication after. That's super important. And beyond all that, I'm a hockey coach. It's a great profession. But I better be judged in life as more than a hockey coach. And I think that the chance to have an impact on people is huge. And I hope I'm always known for the impact I have on people in a positive manner.
Jeff Blashill, head coach of the Detroit Red Wings. Also, congratulations again on being elected to the Hall of Fame, or being named as a member of the Hall of Fame of Ferris State. Thanks for joining us on the Headliner, Jeff. I always appreciate it. Sometimes I know I have a tendency to maybe screw around too much with you, but you've always been there for me throughout the years, and I can't thank you enough. Thanks again, Jeff.
Absolutely, Art. Thank you.
All right, there you have it. That is the Headliner, brought to you by Miller Lite, the original light beer with great taste and only 96 calories, available for delivery. Daniela, what can I say? You can tell. Jeff Blashill is one of my favorites. I am not objective. I really like the guy.
He is definitely a great guy, Art. And I know he feels the same way about you. He definitely loves you too. You can tell.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. He was dripping with sincerity when he was commenting on my pink job.
It was a great interview, though, Art. Great to hear from Coach Blashill. Now let's bring in Carly for our Let's Socialize segment presented by AAA. And Carly, I know you've been all over the social media today and all week long, and you've got some fan questions and you've got some other cool stuff for us. So I'm going to let you take this one over. What do you got for us today?
Oh yeah, we've got a lot today. It is time to socialize. We've had some exciting posts around social media, and I'll get your reactions before we head to fan questions. So I'll start with this picture of Anthony Mantha, who Art, you like to call Big Tony. He's out here during quarantine looking like Wolverine. How are you liking Mantha's look, Art?
I'll tell you what, I love the hair. It kind of reminds me of my own. I mean, it's a little bit wild, a little laid back, the BT Express, as we like calling Big Tony, Mantha's a key guy. And, it's good to see that he's looking, dapper and, has a little bit of hair. Now, I'm from that generation where hair really means something. And to see Big Tony, have some hair, looks good.
Love it. Okay, now
It is
Daniela,
great.
can you help me break down this post of pause by the Tigers?
Oh, no.
Let's pull that up. We need to see that full screen. We need to know what's going on here.
I did.
This is
Oh, you
some
can see
crazy
I like
going
that. I
around
like that post too. Yeah. I honestly, it is hilarious, but I don't know where this trend came from. But having Pause do it, props to the Tigers. That's hilarious. That was one of the best posts of the week.
Oh God, that gave me a chuckle. And all right, I know you're a cat guy, but the Berniers finally got the puppy they've been waiting for, a baby girl named Sky. So cute. And like I said, I know you're a cat guy, Art, but how cute is Sky? And it's so sweet seeing her. Both Jonathan and his wife Martine are posting her with their sons, Tyler and Brady as well. But look at that face. I need a quarantine puppy.
Well, whether it's a puppy or a kitten, any young animal like that, I mean, obviously we know from Tiger King, people have an obsession with petting tiger cubs. So as long as it's small and it can't take your face off, they're beautiful. Yeah, I think it's a great looking dog. I'm not sure what kind of dog it is. Looks kind of, I'm not a breeder.
Yeah, it says right there, Bernie Doodle. So Bernice
Doodle?
Mountain Dog and a poodle. Bernie Doodle. So it's a Bernice Mountain Dog with big dogs and a poodle mix.
I think it's nice. I just think, look, I mean, at this time, a lot of people have gotten pets. I know shelters are emptying out, and whether it be a dog or a cat or whatever. So, that's just good to see. Bernedoodle. Wow. That's, it's really nice. I like the color combination. I think it's going to grow into. I wonder how big of a dog that's going to end up being. I wonder if a year from now, if the Berniers are going to be that pleased when little Fluffy turns into this behemoth. But you never know.
All right. Okay, and finally, I wanted to highlight this tweet from the Tigers. Little Caesars delivered lunch to healthcare heroes at McLaren Healthcare Hospitals around Michigan. It's very cool. It's another wonderful give back during this pandemic that proves no matter what, we are together, Detroit. So you guys can head on over to that post. There's an awesome heartfelt video that you guys can watch. Okay, and then now it's time for some fan questions. We had them on the Red Wings and Tigers stories. They posted a little box where you could ask a question. So a few of you asked a question. So let's get to it. All right, first question. Danielle, I want you to answer first. Lewis period KVR wants to know, who is your favorite Red Wings player of all time? Again, we'll go Danielle, then Art.
All time. Well, this is an easy answer for me, and it's definitely Nick Lidstrom. I just remember him being the first hockey player that I really kind of connected with as a fan. And, you sit there and you watch every game, and I always wanted to watch the captain. I wanted to watch Nick Lidstrom. And I mean, hey, rightfully so. It is Nick Lidstrom.
Right. Okay, Art, how about you?
Well, yeah, there's really so many. I mean, truly, when you're privileged like we are to get to know them just as people too. But I have to say, watching these classic Red Wing games, as much as Nick's right there, the grind lines there, my good buddy Marty Lapointe, Ozzy, of course, Sergey. I would actually have to say, and it's not because he's now the overlord of the Red Wings, I would have to say it's Steve Yzerman. And the reason is because his tolerance for pain is second. It's second to none. I mean, he had some major injuries. His dedication, and then watching them play. And I go back to that Washington series against his good buddy Adam Oates, who was a great center iceman, where they went face to face in the dot in the face-off circle. And Steve had won like 16 won 11 to 16 draws and had won 9 in a row. That's all you need to know about Steve Yzerman. The big goal, obviously, against Casey. The guy takes a puck to the face, and comes back. He gets an osteotomy, so he can continue to play. So I just think when you add up the numbers that he was able to put up, and I will say this too about Steve, and I can go on for a long time, but I will say this. if he did not get hurt as many times as he had some setbacks, he probably would be the Red Wings all-time leading scorer. He would have more than the 1,809 points that Mr. Hockey, the legendary Gordie Howe. I would have to say that there's a blend and a mixture of my all-time favorite Red Wing players: Steve, Sergei, Nick, Gordie, guys like that. So that's a real tough question for me, but I'll go with number 19. I think it's politically correct.
Honestly, I don't even think I had to ask you that question because I already knew the answer. That romance will never be broken. All right, let's head on over. You guys have a beautiful bond. All right, and then let's head on over to the Tigers Instagram, where @AllStar Dodgers wants to know, what is your favorite Tigers moment? Again, Daniela, we'll start with you.
Okay, this is another one that is actually kind of easy for me to answer, but it was the 2006 ALCS game when Maglio Ordonez hit the walk-off home run. He had 2 home runs in that game, actually, but the walk-off home run. And sorry, Art, I know I'm going to age you a little bit here. I was 12 when this happened. So I remember I was in the car with my mom, and we were listening to the game, and I had her, I wouldn't let her turn the volume down. It was all the way up on full blast. So I was listening, and when he hit it, I remember sticking my head out the window like a crazy person and making my mom honk the horn that the Tigers were going to the World Series for the first time since '84. So definitely my favorite Tigers memory, and something that I carry it with me, as it was like the best kid memory ever.
Killer. I love it. Okay, Art, can you top that one?
I was just coming out of nursery school then. I was very, very young. I don't remember that. Now, for me, I really think that probably the greatest memory that I had was the Tigers winning the World Series in 1968. I know I've told this before. My mother let me stay home from school that day. Back then, all World Series games were in the afternoon. And where I live in Livonia, off of Middle Belt Road, where I lived as a kid, it's a direct route to Metro Airport. And as soon as the Tigers won that game, the horn started honking, and there was a lineup from Livonia all the way into Romulus of people wanting to greet the Tigers as they came back. They had to recharter their flight. I think they either went to City Airport. I think that's where they ended up running, or landing. I do think it's that. I think it's just because, for me, at my age, and I wasn't very old back then, believe it or not, it was the first time that I was totally cognizant of a Detroit team winning a championship. I knew it was a big thing. I can remember Red Wings playing, vaguely, when I was really, really young for not for cups or, playing and losing to Toronto and stuff like that. But really, it's that 68 Tigers team, just because, it was the first one. You ladies know how that goes. You never forget your first. And the Tigers were definitely the first championship.
Love it. Okay, that's all I've got this time around on social media, but I want to know what you guys are doing for Cinco de Mayo. Any plans?
I wish I had a sombrero, honestly. I was thinking about that before we started the show. That would have been fun to wear some sombreros. But yeah, I think we're going to have a Mexican-themed dinner tonight. I'm going to have some enchiladas and hopefully a margarita or two as well. So that will be how I'm celebrating.
Love it. Love it. Art, how about you?
As soon as Mark says that we're done, I've got the glass. I've got the salt.
At least it's empty, Mark.
I don't have time for mixing, so I'm going right to the bottle.
Oh my gosh! Art's ready.
I just might a little salt. Happy Cinco de Mayo. I'm ready to go.
Oh,
can we pass that?
I wish we weren't in quarantine. I know. I wish I could.
If I could share this with you two, I would. I wish somehow we could do it.
I know. I wish this quarantine was not keeping us apart.
It's made with Grand Marnier too. So this is high end. High end.
Love
Love
it.
it.
I got my 1800 and my Grand Marnier. Got my jalapenos ready. I'm going to make a spicy marg tonight. Eat my chips and salsa. Those are my favorite. So it doesn't matter if it's Cinco de Mayo or if it's not. I'm eating them anyway. But this was a good
Well,
show. I appreciate it.
You like the spicy marg.
Carly, I just wanted to let you know that that mason jar behind you, is that filled with moonshine or is that a candle?
My coffee was in it. I put my iced coffee in here. As you can tell, it's gone, so I need a refill. But I wish.
Well, we were both wrong.
Maybe one of these
Funny
days.
that it was a candle.
Oh no, it doesn't smell good. It'd be coffee flavored. I guess you can smell it. No, I need this to keep up with Art. Art's already on coffee cup number 6, so I get my extra shot of espresso in my iced coffee, just so I can keep up with Art.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
thank you, Carly. Thank you so much for joining us for the
Thanks,
Let's Socialize, presented by AAA. A great segment, great stuff that you brought us. And our friends at AAA say thank you with free roadside assistance for first responders and healthcare workers fighting to defeat COVID-19. You protect us by going to work every day. Let AAA protect you on the way there and back. Art, once again, we're coming to the end of the show, but the Tigers' excitement is not going to stop here because we get to watch Jack Morris's no-hitter tonight on Fox Sports Detroit.
Yeah, it's the first no-hitter for a Tigers pitcher since Jim Bunning did it in 1958. So it's truly a historic moment in Tigers history. And it just goes to show you, the thing that, when Jack joined us earlier in the program that I really like is that, it wasn't easy for him. He had to work for everything he got. And, and Sparky Anderson was pretty hard on him and said, listen, you have the potential to be, our workhorse. And he started 14 opening days in a row, which is a American League record and one shy of the Major League record, which Tom Seaver holds for the Mets at 15. So, I think what you're watching is the culmination again of the way the Tigers were built. That was in 84. You could tell they started off 35-5, and Jack pitches that no-hitter. You knew that 84 was going to be the Tigers' year.
Yeah, and Jack even kind of alluded to that when we were talking to him, that it was just a special team, and he knew that was a special start to the season to pitch a no-hitter. And there are some other really exciting games. Tomorrow night, we've got Verlander's no-hitter back in 07.
Yeah, that, obviously Justin Verlander, I don't even know if it's arguably, there've been so many great pitchers, Jack Morris, one of them, but, obviously Verlander is right up there as far as Tiger hurlers go. How much did Detroit mean to him, what he and Kate Upton did, his wife, who obviously was born here in Michigan, to come back now that he's an Astro, and give back to this community shows the impact that Detroit had on him, what the Tiger fan base had on him. And obviously Verlander's just a great pitcher. And then, the Galarraga game, which I'm going to turn off just before the last out. I'm looking forward to watching that one too.
Art, I think if we turn it off right before that last out, we can change the outcome in our heads. So that way we'll just live with it as a perfect game.
Yeah, in my mind, that's a perfect game.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree with you.
Exactly. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining the Word on Woodward today. It's been great to be with you guys, and I hope you are celebrating Cinco de Mayo just like Art and I will be. And of course, join us here every Tuesday and Thursday. This Thursday, we've got some really exciting guests lined up for you. We've got Red Wings prospect Joe Veleno, Tigers prospect Matt Manning, Ken Kale will join us, and we've got a whole bunch of other things lined up for you. So it's going to be a great show as always. Art, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure.
Hey, the pleasure's all mine, Daniela, and everybody have a good Cinco de Mayo and enjoy your week. We're all getting through this together. And so enjoy it. Take a moment to, sniff the tequila or something.
I was going to say, I know you'll be cracking that tequila as soon as we sign off. So we'll let you get to it. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And we'll see you on Thursday.
Thank you.